Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Had a great talk with Tom last night. Great businessman, really. You talk about somebody who deeply cares about his business and the people and his customers. Boy, we had a long talk about customers last night. All right. Play-by-play call of the day. Gonzaga, number one ranked team in the country, played Washington last night at the Kennel in Spokane. Everyone thought it would be a good game. Well, it turned out to be a great game that went to the last possession.
Knotted at 79, 9 seconds left. Inbound to Perkins. He's across half court. Perk dribbles to his left, picked up defensively, feeds Hachimura free throw line. Rui spins and shoots for the lead. He's got it! 0.6 of a second to play. Zags lead by 2.
And that was the game winner last night at the Kennel in Spokane, courtesy of the Gonzaga IMG Sports Network. The game winner last night is Gonzaga survives at home and beat Washington 81-79. All right, he's always been one of our favorite guests without question because he's just terrific at what he does. And he's been a great friend to this show. Rich Scarcella, the Red Eagle. Hello, Rich. It is great to have you back on.
Same to you, Steve. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, glad to have you on board. Rich, let's talk about New York, first of all. Mm-hmm. Kerry Collins goes in for the great play that he had here in the 90s, especially 93 and 94. And Trace McSorley was also a part of the dais as well. What was the night like?
Well, I want to be transparent here. I didn't stay for the dinner, but I was at the media session on Tuesday, and to see all the Hall of Famers in the same room was pretty neat. I've been there before when Joe Paterno was inducted,
me too,
and when Shane Conlon was inducted. But just to be around all those great players and coaches, Mac Brown, Frank Beamer, also were inducted Tuesday night. Just a very, very nice event. It's terrific, and we did get a chance with the help of Chris Peterson from Penn State. We did get a chance for Kerry and Trace to meet for the first time. They met at the coin toss before the Ohio State game, but right. Obviously no words were exchanged. They had a brief, nice conversation, and two of the best quarterbacks in Penn State history got together, and I was fortunate enough to be there. That was a pretty neat thing.
What did Kerry Collins say about his Penn State experience?
Oh, there was a dinner the night before that it was a dinner for Penn State donors and supporters, and he called his decision to go to Penn State, to commit to Penn State, the second best decision in his life behind asking his wife to marry him.
Right.
And he couldn't, I don't know if people saw him on Twitter, but he couldn't be more appreciative of Penn State, of, administration, supporters. He went on and just how, how fortunate he was to play there. And, of course, we talked specifically, in the 25 minutes we sat down with him about the Ohio State game from 94 and the Illinois game from 94, which, in my mind, both cemented his legacy and cemented his place as a first-team All-American.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
As to what he was able to do in those two games, which then allowed you to look at the entire body of work in 1994. He's only sacked 5 times all year.
Yeah. He talked about that. That was the lead of my story. That the main story was that, he's obviously the first from the 1994 team to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he said he will not be the last.
No, he will not be the last. They'll be down the road where I think 81 will get in. I think 32 will get in. I think Hardings will then get in. I mean, there'll be a lot of people.
And Bobby Engram.
Bobby Engram will absolutely get in.
Yeah. I mean, I would think they're going to get 5 in. And, he brought up a stat, Steve, and I never sat down and figured it out, and maybe you have. But from that 94 team, from the offense, over 100 years of experience in the NFL.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible when you think about it.
No, it is incredible when you think about it.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting about that? You mentioned Bobby Engram.
Mm-hmm.
You know what made Bobby Engram to me really special? He practiced exactly the same way he played in the games.
Mm-hmm.
I know you didn't get a chance to watch practice, but his practices were exactly the same as the games. If he laid out for a pass in the game, he laid out for the pass of the practice.
Yeah, I mean, he was, a lot of people, have in the last few years have mentioned Allen Robinson and even Deshaun Hamilton, and they had great careers at Penn State.
Yeah.
Nobody can dispute that. And people also mention O.J. McDuffie. In my mind, the 30 years I've covered Penn State, Bobby Ingram's the best receiver I've seen.
Yeah, no, and for me, it's the coupling of the practice part with the game part. It's not because talk about Allen Robinson, awesome receiver, great couple of years. Same thing, most of the time in practice, and then you have a few drops here and there. I never saw Ingram drop a ball. Yeah,
I mean he was. I actually think he was underrated.
Yes.
I do. I really do. I thought he was just a great player and made plays in the clutch. I'll never forget the 95, the inside screen against Michigan State in the final seconds that won the game. Just a lot of big plays, and the touchdown catch at Michigan in 94 that put Penn State ahead fourth quarter. I could go on and talk about what a great player is, and he certainly belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Trace McSorley, did he allow himself to start looking back a little bit on what he's done here, or is he still in that look ahead to the next step mode?
Well, he is more, as you might imagine, I still think he's looking ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's giving himself a chance to reflect. But I will say this, and, talking to him in person about being one of the 13 National Football Foundation Scholar Athletes this year, I think he was really affected by that. Like, he really was touched by that.
Yeah.
By being honored as one of those 13. And I think it's a great tribute to him, too. I don't think people realize he's already earned an accounting degree with like a 3.3 GPA and is working toward a second degree in journalism. And, just a really smart kid. And, when I relayed to him what Kerry had said to him, Kerry said that Trace has had the most accomplished career of any quarterback in Penn State. And, Trace, of course, he goes, in typical Trace fashion, well, that's cool. He was. It really, you could see in his eyes and his face that he was really happy to meet Kerry, and it heard so much about him. And like I said, it was a really neat thing. And I think Trace, Mark Wogenrich from the Allentown Morning Call and I were the only Penn State writers there, and we talked to Trace for about 10, 12 minutes. And I don't want to give away secrets because Mark, I don't think, has written a story, and I'm not planning to write it. But Trace talked about the NFL and about, what he thinks he can do and what he hopes he can do. And I'll just leave it at that. But
right.
He was very, he's looking forward. He is not looking back.
I have to ask you now, Jim Delaney was talking about, what to do with divisions. I thought when the Big 12 decided to have a championship game, I was surprised they didn't go to divisions and that they would just take the top two teams. Well, in the end, in this particular year, it worked out. Oklahoma avenged its loss to Texas. They got into the playoff. What do you think the Big Ten should do? Should they keep divisions? Should they change divisions? Or should they go 1 through 14 and take the top 2?
I honestly don't like taking the top 2. If you go like the Big 12, you have a 10-team league, and Oklahoma was clearly there was no they were the number 1 team, and I know Texas beat them.
Right.
But to me, if the number 1 team proves itself over the course of a conference schedule, then I kind of think they should be the champion. Now, you have unbalanced schedules. I mean, everybody in the Big 12 plays each other.
Right.
If you do that in the Big 10, okay, maybe you can have the top 2 teams. I don't know. I know the one thing I am positive about, and I do think it should happen, is that they should go to 8 conference games. I don't think there's any question that is not a level playing field when you compare it to the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12. The Pac-12 and the Big 10 are playing 9 conference games, and that's a disadvantage to me. As for divisions, I know what the intent was when they created this, an East and West. And, who's to say in 5 years that the West won't be stronger than the East? Because it's possible. I don't know. I'd have to hear.
I'm with you, Rich, because I'm a big believer that there are trends. I'm a big believer in trends, and things change over time. I mean, I don't care whether it's Major League Baseball. I mean, the Yankees have won 20. Your Yankees that you love have won 27 championships. Well, they haven't won them all. They've won 27 of them.
Right.
I mean, to me, there's ups and downs for everything. And who's to say now Ohio State, Ryan Day may keep them at the same level. They may step back because of Ryan Day, because it's not Urban. Right. We don't know yet.
Yeah. And that's the way I feel. I mean, I know right now it's sort of, it's sort of stacked. I mean, the East is very, very strong. Like you look at, Delaney said this, and I'm not going to dispute it. He said that there are 3 teams that could win the national championship: Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State from this year. Yep. And if Penn State got on a roll and with a healthy Trace McSorley, I could see, they could compete for sure. Now, who's to say Nebraska in 2 or 3 years with Scott Frost there is going to be a factor in the national championship race?
Right, exactly.
Or Iowa, or even Wisconsin. You don't know this. I mean, Purdue, with now that Braum has a new contract, Purdue takes off. I think it's a little premature to say, hey, maybe we're going to abolish divisions, and it's just a weird, thing if you do go that way with unbalanced schedules to take the top 2 teams. I just don't know if that's the fairest way. Well,
as you and I know, whenever something comes up, there's always the immediate, you got to do something about it. Just slow down. Okay? Yeah. Let it breathe a little bit. Let's give it a little time and see if the trend continues to be this way, then you've got to think about changing it. But you've got to give it a chance to show that it's a trend.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. I mean, James Franklin, he talked about this Sunday night, but I think his whole point was that the conference, they have to take a look at playing 9 conference games and consider going to 8. And I am in complete agreement with that because, like I said earlier, it's not a level playing field when you're playing 9 league games compared to 8 for the 3 of the other Power 5 conferences.
Well, let's take it a step further. And I've discussed this before, but there are only 6 times where the college football playoff committee ranks teams. In one of those 6 weeks, Alabama is playing an FCS team every year.
Right.
All right. Now, instead of making a statement and dropping them to 5, okay? Again, they're weekly snapshots, right?
Right.
They're weekly snapshots. They are not meant to be trends. That's what they tell us when they vote. Then good, send them a message, drop them to 5, and then look into the camera and look right at Nick Saban and say, you shouldn't be playing that team when we're ranking teams.
Yeah, and especially, like you said, the last 5-6 weeks of the season, especially the next to last week of the regular season, where almost the entire SEC is playing FCS teams. It just, to me, there's just, is there a perfect system? No, there's not a perfect system. Of course not. No. But to me, the most equitable thing for the Big Ten and the Pac-12 would be to go to 8 conference games.
Well, it would open up the flexibility, and for those who would like to play Pitt every year, that would be actually a door opener to do something like that. Now, I don't really care for Pitt every year. I really don't. Mm-hmm. I just want to, I like the idea they're going to put Auburn on there. I think that's really cool. But 8 at least gives you more flexibility scheduling wise.
Yeah, but it also you're with playing, you're playing 9 league games.
Yeah.
And you're risking, you're almost risking almost every week. I mean, okay, Rutgers is down and Illinois is down, but I think his point was, James Franklin's point was, Ohio State playing Purdue. Now again, it's their fault they lost by 29 points.
Right.
But it's not like Purdue's a bad team.
No.
And it's a crossover game, and Alabama only plays 2 crossover games,
and one's Tennessee, and the other one was Missouri. Those are and Tennessee's their designated game every year. Penn State's crossover games were Iowa and Wisconsin. Well, okay, along with Illinois, but Iowa and Wisconsin,
right,
might be better than Tennessee and Missouri.
Yeah. So I mean, again, if you go to 8 conference games, maybe now you have a lot of flexibility with the schedule, and then that means in terms of playing a weaker team, sticking a weaker team, non-conference team in late October, beginning in November, to avoid what Penn State went through, which was a meat grinder.
Yep.
Ohio State through Wisconsin. I mean, those 6 games or 5 games. I'm trying to think. 6 games. Yeah, 6 games in 7 weeks. That was brutal. That was a brutal stretch.
Yeah, it was.
And they found their way through it. I mean, they had some bumps in the road, obviously, but Alabama doesn't play 7 games like that in a 6 games like that in a 7-week stretch.
No.
So that's the biggest thing. But when Jim Delaney says we're taking a harder look at it, that leads me to believe that they're going to do something, and I hope they do the right thing.
Same here. Rich, always a pleasure. Thanks so much. Look forward to talking to you soon. Look forward to seeing you next week.
My pleasure, Steve. Anytime.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle. We'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors. Our thanks to Bill Bender, Sporting News, and Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle. Been a fun, fast-paced past hour, and it's great to have you on board with us today. So we've got a lot going on, and we got a lot more going on tomorrow. Ray Dittinger is going to be on the show. The legend will be with us. He put out the Eagles Encyclopedia, and I got sent a copy of it. It's fascinating because it's more than just dates and times. There's stories about players in there, seasons in there. It's really, really good. Really good.
Yeah, Ray's got a busy day tomorrow. He has some early afternoon, early evening book signings, and he'll join us in between.
Look forward to it. It's a class act. I personally not only respect him, I really personally like Ray. He's just a good guy. Great to have you with us on the show tonight. Little open line time so we can sit down and talk about what you want to talk about. Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you. The other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. They've added Hyundai in. That's big. Great to have you with us on the show today. Ray Dittinger coming up tomorrow. Also, our thanks to Bill Bender's Sporting News, who joined us in the 3:35 half hour, and Rich Scarcella in the previous half hour from the Reading Eagle. All very interesting. Really great guest today. Intriguing. Great conversation. I've enjoyed it very much. All right. So, we told you about Alex Smith. He is, after the broken leg, he's had a problem with an infection. It's not the first time I heard about this. Mackenzie Milton, the quarterback from UCF, hurt his knee, and he had to battle an infection. And so those two guys as quarterbacks, it's been tough as to what they've gone through. And that's a problem. And that's the problem they're both dealing with right now. Mike Loxley, as we mentioned, being the head coach at Maryland. He did visit with the McNair family as well. So that's one of the big ones right there in terms of a hiring. They had to do something. You have to do something now. We're 13 days away from the early signing period. That's why it's so important that by the end of this week, everybody has their ducks in a row when it comes to what their coaching situation is. They need to have that. The early signing period, you can't just flush down the drain a recruiting class. Can't do it.
Yeah, that's got to be the big deciding factor of him now being the new head coach at Maryland. He's only won 3 games in his times as head coach in the past when you check his resume. So I guess they wanted someone who is already familiar with the Maryland program and how he can recruit in that portion here of the eastern corridor of the country.
Well, that's what they're hoping for, that he can do that, because his time at New Mexico State and as the interim coach at Maryland, because he's already coached against Penn State once when he was the interim. Penn State won that game, 31-30, I think. That was Hackenberg's last year here. It was down at M&T Bank Stadium where the Ravens play.
That's right. That's when Maryland wore those throwback red jerseys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one where I said, and Maryland's wearing their throwback red jerseys with the white helmets from the 1961 season. I said, Penn State is also wearing its throwback jersey. Oh, wait a minute. Those are the Penn State jerseys.
Timeless.
Oh, boy. Hey, you got to have some fun once in a while. just have a little bit of fun. But Loxley takes that job. There have been a lot of reports, by the way, about Josh Gaddis joining him at Maryland, but Bruce Feldman's reporting, don't jump the gun on that. Don't jump the gun on that. So we'll just play the waiting game when it comes to that anyway. But those are some of the big stories of the day. Again, baseball-wise, Nathan Eovaldi is re-signing with the Red Sox after what he did down the stretch in the postseason for them. It worked out well, a 4-year, $68 million deal. Of course, we talked about the Big Ten and divisions. I want to get into that in just a moment here. The Eagles, of course, will take on the Cowboys. Eagles linebacker Camus Grigor-Hill said the Cowboys, quote, always choke at this time of the year. He said, look at the Dallas history, Hill said. Said they always choke, so we'll just go down there and make them choke. That's the quote of the week. Oh, man. What's really cool, though, is Dallas will not put that up on the bulletin board. They'll take the high road. I hope Hill goes out there and figures out a way to stop him. But that was a pretty interesting quote, don't you think there, Sean? Not bad.
I found this to be really interesting, and I had no idea that this was percolating and marinating, because we're hearing within the next year or two, well, obviously coming up here after this NFL season, you're going to have the debut of the American Alliance of Football.
Mm-hmm.
Vince McMahon is going to resuscitate the XFL, but that's not until 2020.
Right.
But how about this? Now there is what's called a Freedom Football League, and this is going to be operated by former NFL players Ricky Williams and new Pro Football Hall of Famer Terrell Owens. And this was made official today. Simeon Rice is also going to be involved with this, associated with the league. There's going to be 100 stakeholders with 50 former players among them. A new spring football league. Ricky Williams says it's for the fans, and it's by the players. It started with a bunch of guys sitting around a table, talking about the good old days, and realizing, we have a lot of experience. We've been there before. We know how to do it. What if we started a league and really made it about developing young men? Other names emerging as early owners are Jeff Garcia, former NFL quarterback, bounced around a few teams, including Cleveland, and former Super Bowl MVP Dexter Jackson. Games will be in the spring and summer. Initially, they're going to start with 10 teams, and they want to attract football players at their highest level of athletic ability, including those defecting from the National Football League, graduating college, or high school, or playing in international or alternative professional football leagues. The league's ultimate goal appears to be to allow people to play football who are out of the NFL or looking to even get back into it. It's being funded privately and publicly, so Ricky Williams says it'll be partly owned by the players, partly owned by the fans, and partly owned by the operators. He appeared earlier today on ESPN's Outside the Lines.
If there is no Alliance of American Football, which I think is the one of the three you mentioned, Freedom Football, XFL, Alliance to me is the one that has the best shot at doing it, even though it is all, essentially it's Southern-based. All those teams are Southern-based. But I think they've got the best shot at doing it because I think they're the best organized. They already have Rick Neuheisel involved. They have Phil Savage involved. They have, Steve Spurrier involved. They're just better organized at this point. And the concept that they have is simple. Look, you'll get a chance to watch football, but our goal is not to go out there and sign Kyler Murray to a contract to play football for us instead of playing for the Oakland A's or the NFL. That's not their goal, the Alliance. They're not there to have a groundbreaking Herschel Walker moment. Their goal is to play games, coach them up, and hopefully some guys in the Alliance end up going to NFL training camps and making teams. And that's what their goal happens to be. Their goal is not to compete. Now, it doesn't sound like the Freedom guys want to do the same thing. They want to do the same thing. The difference is the Alliance already has a leg up on them, and they're already well organized. See, that's the only issue I have with what they're trying to do. It sounds like they're trying to do exactly the same thing the Alliance of American Football is in the spring. The difference is they're starting at square one as opposed to the Alliance, which already now has rosters, a draft, and everything, and they're organized in stadiums and ready to go.
You just wonder with this new Freedom Football League what kind of rule book they're going to have, and if there's going to be any differences or similarities between what the XFL and AAF are going to do. Maybe with Freedom Football, maybe it'll be like a 7-on-7 thing.
I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. If they had come out with their idea first, I'd be saying, yeah, this is a really great idea. The problem is they didn't come out with the idea first. The guys running the Alliance of American Football came up with it first. And because of that, I think they're now way ahead of everybody else. The XFL's not starting until 2020. Well, again, the AAF is ahead of them. And I believe that does make a big difference. I just also think that the Alliance has put together a really, really good approach. I like their approach a lot, as a matter of fact. I'll watch a couple of Alliance games. I'll watch when they start. Maybe I'll pick out another game a month later to watch, whatever. And I'm sure I'll watch the championship game, which I want to say is in May, late April.
No, you and I have already talked off air quite a bit as to you've already mentioned to me quite a few players who would benefit to be part of the American Alliance of Football.
Well, one of them is obvious in that I think this is Christian Hackenberg's best shot. And I think that's important. This is his best shot. And I think that for him to sit there and to prove that he can get it done in a professional setting against, it won't be the best competition, but good competition. Because you're going to have a lot of guys playing their backsides off in this league because they're trying to prove to the NFL they should be in camp. Even though this is not a sanctioned minor league for the NFL, it's not sanctioned. It's still implied that it is. And I like that idea. I'd rather have that idea moving forward. And I've always believed the USFL could have made it if they'd been a little bit more patient. And I say that with all due respect, Mr. President. It's just me on the outside looking in. I think they would have made it. They would have hung around. I think they would have hung around to the point if they'd been able to hang on another 3 or 4 years. I could see four of their teams getting absorbed into the NFL. I think they could have forced that to happen. So I think there is a feeling of and an appetite to have some spring football out there that people can enjoy and watch. Now, the USFL is a little bit different because the USFL, they get Herschel Walker, and then they get Steve Young, and then they get Jim Kelly, and they get Doug Flutie, and then they get Reggie White. They had some players in that league, big name college talent that helped attract people to want to watch the games. These leagues that we're talking about now, Freedom, XFL, and Alliance, won't have that. They'll have some intriguing names that we know of and have seen before, but not to the level of Jim Kelly, Reggie White, Steve Young, Herschel Walker, and people like that. But I think they'll do okay. I think CBS Sports Net is going to carry their game, so they got a TV contract. And there'll be a curiosity factor about it. There'll be a curiosity factor. By the way, we've got football tonight. We've got Tennessee and Jacksonville on Westwood tonight and WKOK. That'll be this evening. This is after Santa Claus, of course. Magic radios will be fired up and set to go at 6 this evening from 6 to 7. When you walk in the front door, you'll see those of you who are going to be here tonight, you'll see your name up in lights when you walk in.
Yeah, we just added that about a year or two ago. We now have a flat screen, high-def flat screen when you walk in the door at our Blue Hill studios. And, we thought we would add that as a little extra special value. So the kids and their parents, a little extra Kodak moment for them. They grab their phones and take photos of the kids standing in front of the TV with their names on the screen. It's really
absolutely
cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's really just a really neat thing.
You would think just getting the great big gold star. Obviously that's the icing on the cake. That's the goal. That's the deal that the kids are looking for.
Right.
Other than what they want for Christmas under the tree, of course.
Yeah. And, there was a great quote from the youngster last night. It just looked at me, Suit's not here, is he?
Long-time listener.
I said...
Long-time Talk to Santa fan.
I said, so it's okay, Bobby. He's at a party.
You're free to go to the studio. Hang a left and 2 rights. So you're good.
And then the other
Pay no attention to that office with the name upside down on the door.
Yeah, the other one said to me, "Does Mr. Suit know that his nameplate's upside down?" I said, "I'm sorry, sorry, little Billy."
Mr. Suit.
We'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hi, I'm Sean Kerry. The Needy Family Fund campaign is underway as we support the Salvation Armies in Milton and Sunbury so they can do the most good for those less fortunate this Christmas season. All donations are tax deductible. Stop by any branch of BB&T across the central Susquehanna Valley. We have a $100,000 goal, so let's make it happen. More details at WKOK.com. Thank you and Merry Christmas from BB&T, the Salvation Army, the Daily Item, and WKOK.
The goal for the Needy Family Fund this year is $100,000. The bottom line is it's like giving a direct donation to somebody. There's no overhead here. And we are certainly tracking toward that number, but we get there one great donation at a time. And don't sit there ever and say, well, I can only give. There is no such thing as I can only give. Anything you do give is a big deal. And never compare what you give to what somebody else is able to give. Fact is that you've made the effort and you've thought of somebody else. That means more than you can ever realize. And the Needy Family Fund is a great place to consider putting your money to help somebody else.
Yeah, we're about at the quarter pole. Last check, we're over $23,000. With just under 3 weeks away till Christmas time. So thanks ahead of time for your gifts.
For those of you who have given so far, thank you so much. For those of you who are about to do it, in advance, we thank you very much. So, that's going to be important. Of course, Santa Claus tonight, 6 to 7. Titans and Jags tonight is the Thursday night game. Tomorrow, Ray Didinger will be on the show, wrote the Eagles Encyclopedia. We'll have the legendary one on himself. And then someone who has then also transitioned into legendary status, the King, will be on the show tomorrow with his picks. It was not a good week for him again. These epiphanies are not working well.
Yeah, he's got to refigure something out here.
Well, this is what happens when you fall behind in this.
Desperate times.
You then start taking more chances because you're trying to make up ground, which is exactly the only way to do it. Because if you keep picking the same stuff as everybody else, you're never going to make up any ground. So you got to take a chance here and there, and he's taking a couple of chances here and there. For the first time, he has run into problems that we've run into before.
Well, that's the thing he's been able to capitalize on the first couple of years he's done the show with the picks. You get off to that fast start, and it's just really hard to catch up. And
then next Thursday we're going to do our bowl picks. The 18-time defending champion.
Up to 18 now. Okay, the number keeps growing.
Well, it's like Chichi Rodriguez said. I don't exaggerate. I just remember big.
I think I may tweet that out later. That's good.
What was it? Saturday Night Live? Garrett Morris.
Baseball better good to me.
Chai Rodriguez.
Les Nessman, WKRP.
Oh, that's right. It was Les Nessman.
That's right.
More WKRP. More music. Les Nessman.
Town to town, up and down the dial.
Your station for news, weather, business, and CBS Sports Radio. News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury and on WKOK.com.